PBG, Jeff here. We're going to dive right into our sales presentation now. And we know the presentation that works is the one that you give the most. So once again, this is the presentation that I used. We don't judge it for grammar, verbiage, etc. The bottom line is the presentation works. A couple of points I want to touch on though before we get into the actual presentation. Number one, you only get one chance to make a first impression. So that's real important as far as personal appearance. Shoes are polished, appropriate dress, etc. Now, anything that you're dealing with in your life, personal, outside of that, leave that in your car, because the client has their own set of issues and challenges and things that they're dealing with in their life. So obviously keep that in the car. It's going to be there when you get back, I promise. Next is punctuality. Make certain that you're on time. If you're not going to be on time, call the client. Even if you're going to be 5 minutes late, give them a call and go, "Hey Betsy, this is Jeff Huggins. I caught up in a little bit of traffic. I'll be there within 5 to 10 minutes. I just want to make sure that you knew I was right around the corner." They will appreciate you being respectful of their time. Don't just show up 5 or 10 minutes late and think, "Hey, that's no big deal. I'm only 5 or 10 minutes late." Well, if someone's pet peeve is punctuality, it's a big deal to them, and perception's reality. So if they perceive it as being a big issue, you don't want to start your presentation off on that note. So with that being said, we always give our presentation at the kitchen table. Okay, we don't give it in the living room. We don't give it at the, somewhere else. Always give it at the kitchen table, because most people make important decisions at the kitchen table. Try to get the husband and wife to sit beside each other. You don't want to sit at one end of the table and then one of them sits on one side, the other one sits on the other side. It's like you're going through a tennis match or something back and forth. So try to get them to sit side by side. Now, as we get into our presentation, I'm not going to go through the rapport building phase, but just assume that you've taken the time to ask some open-ended questions. What's an open-ended question? A question that doesn't end with a yes or a no. How long have you lived in the area? What brought you into the area? What do you like best about the area? What caused you to choose this home? What do you like best about your neighborhood? Open-ended questions are questions that begin with what, when, where, why, how, and who. Brian Tracy, highly noted and acclaimed sales trainer, said there were 6 honest serving men that taught me everything I know. Their names were what and when and where and why and how and who. So take that time to build some rapport. People don't buy from people that necessarily know the most. When they say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Find some common ground with the folks and the people that you're visiting with, okay? There's only 4 reasons that people buy mortgage protection, and logic is not one of them. They're love, fear, need, and greed. Those are emotions that drive all of us. If we get to know people a little bit, then it's a lot easier to make a connection with them. So when I sit down with someone, we give them our card, your business card, obviously, and then after that, you're going to build some rapport with them. From that, let's segue into the presentation. Now, the first thing that I'm going to show them is going to be the letter that they had sent in. So I'm going to interact and role play with Betsy here as we go through this. Now, Betsy, as we get started this evening, I wanted to show you, here's a copy of the letter that you had received in the mail and that you had sent back to me, okay? That is your handwriting there, is that correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right, excellent. So now it says here that your mortgage balance is $417,000, that's correct?
Yes.
Okay, and then everything else on here as far as dates of birth and health questions, all this is correct as well, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We want to get our clients into the mood of thinking yes and agreeing with us. There's a lot easier at the end for them to feel comfortable to make a buying decision to say yes, all right? So Betsy, this plan also has a death benefit of $417,000, but one phrase and one word, 2 words I should say, that are extremely important that you want to write down, don't forget, is living benefits. If I were to ask you, Betsy, do you or your spouse know of anyone that's ever had a heart attack, a stroke, or cancer and lived, what would you say?
Yes.
Okay. Now, virtually everyone that we visit with, Betsy, has life insurance. This isn't meant to take the place of life insurance. This is meant to take care of your mortgage. For most families, if they had to use their life insurance to take care of the mortgage, there wouldn't be anything else left for the family. Okay, so most life insurance that's out there, it only pays in the event of one occurrence. And what is that?
Death.
Okay, so the people that we know that have had a heart attack, stroke, or cancer and are living, probably what did their life insurance policy pay them?
Right.
What would you say it probably paid them?
Oh,
They didn't die.
right. No,
Okay,
no,
but they
it
had
paid
a
them,
heart attack, stroke, or cancer. So did it give them any money?
it paid them nothing.
Okay, but yet the number one cause of bankruptcy in America, do you know what that is?
Divorce?
That's one of them, but medical bills is right up there with it.
Aha.
Okay, we all know of someone that had a catastrophic illness and accrued hundreds of thousands of dollars in medical bills, and it could be devastating to a family, especially if they don't have the right health insurance. Okay,
That's a good point.
so living benefits are a key component of our plan. Okay, but before I even get into the plan, the first thing I need to do, Betsy, is to see if you even need this plan. Now, if there is a need for this plan, I'll show you why tens of thousands of families choose our company every single year. And I'll also show you why I chose our company. Now, we're what's called an independent agency. So we go around and we shop and look at different companies to see who's going to give you the best value for your money. Now, if all you care about, Betsy, is who's cheapest, I would tell you that we're probably not right for you. Because often good things aren't cheap and cheap things aren't good. You know, and I'm sure you've probably experienced that. We try to cut corners sometimes, and we buy the cheaper bicycle or cheaper this or that, and that doesn't, you know, it's shelf life or life is very short-lived, and we end up having to go get a new one. So when I was raised, my dad always told me that, you know, the best shortcut is doing it right the first time. So we try to find who's going to give you the best value. You know, I noticed when I came in your home, you got a beautiful home from the crown moldings and the window treatments, and I can tell that, you know, every detail was addressed when they built your home, and I'm sure you probably didn't walk into it and go, wow, this place looks cheap, let's buy it. So we want to make sure that we explain the rates to you one time today, Betsy, and then we don't have to make apologies down the road. The fact that you purchased an inferior product and it doesn't meet your needs and objectives down the road. And I'm sure you could probably appreciate and respect that. Fair enough?
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I will tell you before we move any further is that the only thing that I ask tonight, Betsy, is that I'm going to take the time and overview our program with you if we see that there's a need. Okay. And if we see that there's not a need, I'll be on my way. Is that fair enough?
Sure.
Okay. Now, once I review the program with you, if you feel that this program meets your family's needs, all I ask is that you just let me know. Okay?
Oh, okay.
So, and if it doesn't meet your needs, let me know that. Either way, that's fine by me. Is that fair enough?
That is, yes.
Okay, great. All right. That's the only thing we ask. Okay. So, this is what we call a blueprint for life, Betsy. And on the blueprint for life, when they built your home, there was a blueprint, a game plan that they went through, you know, to kind of a roadmap to follow. So this is a blueprint for us to get a snapshot of your life insurance in a basic financial picture, okay?
Okay.
It's not meant to be a complete financial plan, but it just gives us a bird's eye view of where you're at when it comes specifically to life insurance, okay?
Okay.
All right. So that says here that your mortgage balance is about $417,000, correct?
That's right.
Okay. And you'd mentioned that y'all's monthly income was $7,000 per month. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, what do you have in the way of any consumer debt, like credit cards, automobiles? If you were just going to write a check and pay off all of that, you know, what would that number be?
Probably around 30,000.
About 30,000. Okay. Now, God forbid, Betsy, if something were to happen to either you or your spouse, how many years would you want to have set aside in income to tide the family over? Meaning 3 years, 5 years, so everybody could kind of get on their feet. What would be a number that you'd be comfortable with for years that you have income set aside?
Well, optimally, at least 5 years.
Okay. So we're looking at an income of $84,000 per year. So 5 years of that would be $420,000. Okay. So $420,000. And your mortgage is $417,000. Now I know you have 2 children and their age is 13, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So would you like to have some money set aside for college, God forbid something happens to you?
Oh, absolutely.
What's a number, and I know college is becoming increasingly expensive, but what's a number that you feel comfortable with to at least get them started? Maybe it doesn't pay for all of it, but it could make a big dent in it, so to speak.
Well, if I could have 100,000 total, so, you know, to at least get both of them started.
Okay, all right. And then for final expenses, have you ever had to deal with the loss of a loved one or anything like that?
Fortunately, not directly.
Okay. On average, we figure about $10,000 for that. You think that's a fair number?
Sure.
Okay. So what we do is we add all of these up to get a total. So your debts are $30,000. Okay. Income replacement is $420,000. Mortgage is $417,000. Okay. For education would be $100,000, and final expenses would be $10,000. Okay. So we're looking at a total of approximately $900,000.
Wow.
Okay. Now, when you see that number 900,000, how do you feel about that?
Well, it's an eye-opener.
Okay. I mean, does that seem like outrageous, or does it seem relevant based off of the areas that are important to you?
Well, I mean, based on all the areas you asked me about, it's obviously relevant, but, you know, is there a place where we could maybe not, you know, maybe shorten that number a little bit, or?
Okay. Well, most families that I visit with, Betsy, if they were going to pick one area that they wanted to focus on first, you know, because we could address it a step at a time, so to speak. But for most people, it's the mortgage. And of course, that's what you inquired about, is a mortgage protection plan. And then we could address the other pieces of the puzzle, if you will, at a later date. Is that the area that you'd want to address first, make sure the mortgage is paid if something happens?
Yes.
Okay, all right. All right, so we'll make note on that. So mortgage would be your priority. Okay, and then how about existing life insurance that you and your spouse would have right now? What do you have currently in the way of life insurance?
You know, I think both my husband and I have life insurance through our companies. I think they're probably like maybe $75,000 or $100,000 policies each.
Okay, so let's say $100,000 a piece. And those policies, I'm assuming that you would have those for as long as you're with your company.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
So if I were to ask you, do you anticipate that you'll probably work with your company for the rest of your career, what would you say?
That I hope so, but that's kind of not a given.
Okay, all right. So we normally don't factor that into it because that's really something that you're not totally in control of. Is there any other insurance that you would have outside of that?
No.
Okay, okay. Well, hey, as we say, you can't plan your future in the future, so better to know that now and address it when you're healthy and you can qualify for coverage and there's a need for it as opposed to after the fact. Okay. So there's really no policies in force outside of what you'd have in your employer, okay?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, as a side note, everyone, if the client does have other policies, it's very, very important that you have them get those policies and you want to review those policies with them to help them understand what it is that they have. Now, if you don't feel comfortable or you don't understand the policy, when you look at it, it looks like a foreign language to you, then you simply write the numbers of the policies on the back of your business card, give them it as a receipt, so to speak. Take that back to your manager. Review that with your manager and let them go over with you. I was on an appointment yesterday. We're to the point of almost going and leaving the house and walking out empty-handed. But I was adamant about them going and getting their policies. They had to go downstairs in the basement, behind a filing cabinet, dig them out. But when they brought them back, this client, they thought they had about $300,000 of coverage apiece, and it ended up that they only had $10,000 of whole life apiece. The other $290,000 was in a decreasing term policy for each of them that was going to expire within the next 4 years, and they'd have nothing but $10,000 of coverage. So instead of walking out empty-handed, I walked out with a check for $320 to help this family get some permanent coverage in place, and they really understood what they had. They said, "Jeff, we've had these policies for 20 years, and we've worked with different agents. You are the only agent that ever took the time to go over our policies with us. We got the carriers on the phone, guys, to go over with them to tell them what they had, because just so you look at the policy, that doesn't mean the policy's in force." So we got on the phone with the carrier, and once the clients gave approval for the carrier to answer questions for me, I had to go through and say, "Okay, tell me about this. When's this policy good? When's this term out or fall off?" Just so we could make certain, because we didn't even know if the policies were still in force, because they had so many policies that they had dropped or been replaced. So they felt great about me helping them understand what it was that they exactly had. As a matter of fact, the lady was on a medication for anxiety, and I felt you almost need to take a dosage by the time we were done, because we had policies spread out all over the kitchen table. But I said, this is short-term pain for long-term gain. But that's our job. That's what we do to make sure that we do the right thing for families. So if they have policies, even if it's a little bit of an inconvenience for them, have them get those policies. You've got to go over them, because there's a lot of people out there that have an inferior product, especially with living benefits. Guys, get this. Only 1 in 100 policies in America. Only 1 out of 100 has living benefits. 99 out of 100 do not have living benefits built into the plan. Okay? That's how powerful what we're talking about is. So back to the needs analysis, but that's very important, that side note. Okay, so we've identified that the client really has no life insurance of note. Okay, then the next thing we look at is assets. Betsy, what do you and your husband have in the way of like IRAs, 401ks, CDs, things of that nature?
We both have 401ks with our company, and we do put money into IRAs every tax season.
Okay. And what would be the approximate amount that you have in your IRAs, just a total?
Probably maybe 15, 20,000.
Okay. And then how about your current 401ks?
Yeah, I have about 100,000 in mine, and my husband, pretty sure it's around the same number.
Okay. Now, have you been real happy with the performance of your IRAs over the past couple of years? I mean, have you ever had any losses in your accounts?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know, Betsy, if you and your husband are aware of this, but there's actual strategies in the marketplace today to where you can position your money to share in the gains of the market, but it also has a safety net or a floor, if you will, built underneath it to where you don't share in the losses of the market.
Wow.
Okay. Are you familiar with how that works?
No, that's the first time I've ever heard of not having to lose money in the market.
Okay. Well, you know, at the end of the day, I think, Betsy, we all want to make sure our money works as hard for us as we did for it. Like if I were to ask you on your IRA or your 401k, how much money are you comfortable losing? What would you say?
0.
Okay. But yet we've got them positioned in vehicles to where we could lose money. How much money could you potentially lose in your IRA?
All of it?
Correct. Yeah. However low the market goes, you can lose that much.
Right.
So obviously, if you're not comfortable with losing money, yet you have it in a vehicle where it could lose, and it could lose a significant amount, then it might behoove you to just explore some options that are out there. Now, I know you invited me to come out today to talk about mortgage protection. Okay, but at a later visit, possibly, I could put together some safe money strategies for you, and you could at least review it. You know, because sometimes even if you've got someone you're working with that you feel comfortable, you know, often with your money, it's kind of like going to the doctor. Sometimes it doesn't hurt to get a second opinion. Okay, and if anything, it'll just validate that what you're doing. Okay, is that fair enough?
Sure.
Okay, I'll make a note on it, and then we can schedule a follow-up visit to get together on it. Okay?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right, great. So if we deduct out what your money is that you have in your qualified plans, IRAs, 401ks, etc., it would give about $700,000 of coverage that you would need. I know right now that number, you know, that's too big really to address all at once, and that's why we had said that let's look at the mortgage first and at least take care of that, and then we can move on to the next step, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Now, the first thing that we like to go through before I really get into the specifics of the product, Betsy, we call this Insurance 101, okay? And there's basically 2 types of life insurance. There's term and there's permanent. Term is temporary. Doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's only good for a certain term, okay? If you pass away after that term, then really, you know, all bets are off, so to speak. Okay?
Gotcha.
Permanent is permanent. So if we look at term here, most people buy term because it's less expensive. It costs less initially. But as we get older, the cost does go up, especially beyond the term. You don't build equity into a term plan, okay? Whereas in the permanent plan, you can build cash value in your policy, which would be an example of equity, if you will. Now, on a term product, the coverage does end. And then at that point, most term products do become annual renewable term, and the rate can and will go up substantially at that point, okay? On permanent coverage does cost more initially, but the cost is level. That cost never goes up if we structure your policy properly. You do build cash value in the policy. Years down the road, there's an option where you can actually receive your premiums back that you put into the policy. Okay? In essence, it becomes like a forced savings account. And the coverage never ends, okay?
Okay.
So term would be kind of like renting an apartment, and permanent's like buying a home.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense.
It does, yep.
Okay? Now, before we move any further, I want to stress to you that, you know, Betsy, you and your husband could have half a dozen different people come in to talk to you about insurance. And they all have their recommendations as why company A is better or company B is better. But yet at the end of the day, I believe that actions speak far louder than words. And if I don't believe enough in my company that I would spend my money that I earn to pay for a policy for my family, then I probably don't feel that you should either. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes.
Okay. Because if you had half a dozen folks come in and sit down with you at the kitchen table and review insurance, you know, maybe one of them would own their own policy. Okay? But to me, I believe enough in our company that I would spend money on a policy for myself and my family. Now, here's my policy, and I probably need a bit more insurance than you do because I have 4 young children at home, ages 8, 11, 13, and 15. So But I just want to show you, here's my policy and the premiums that I pay, so you can understand that, if I believe enough in the policy, then obviously it would make sense for y'all as well. So you can see right here is my policy. Here shows that the death benefit, is $500,000. Now I have a permanent policy. I tell people, if you can tell me the day that you're going to die, then term is great. If you can tell me that day, but I've yet to meet someone that could really tell me that. So for permanent needs, we use permanent insurance, okay? Now, my monthly premium is $600 per month. Don't fall out of your chair. Your premium's nowhere near $600 per month, okay? But I've got a feature where you can get back all the money, because I know it's way easier to spend money than save it. So this is like a forced savings account for me. Even though it's not an investment, it's an insurance policy, okay? But years down the road, if I choose, I can stop the plan, like here at age 70, and have the option to get back all the money that I put into it. That's one of the options that I would show you today. Okay? And if that makes sense for you, okay?
All right.
Okay. So here's my policy as I explained to you and reviewed with you. And as I said, we could work with several different companies, but we choose our company because we find they give you the best value for your money. So let me share just a few particulars with you, just a few facts that you might already be aware of. I don't know if you are, but men have a 1 in 2 risk of developing cancer during their lifetime. Women, it's 1 in 3. We all know someone that's been impacted by cancer. I'm sure you could probably think of someone, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, also, every 40 seconds, someone in the United States has a stroke. Every 26 seconds, someone has a heart attack. Now, if we take that pool of people, we could go to the nearest hospital to Forsyth County here, and if we were to go through that hospital and just survey patients there to see what condition occurred that put them in the hospital, a lot of them had a heart attack, a lot of them had a stroke, a lot of them had cancer, and they lived. And as we had addressed earlier, their life insurance wouldn't pay them anything.
Right.
Because it didn't have living benefits built into the plan, okay? So some of these people are going to die, but a lot of them are going to live. So this plan is meant to be one solution, if you will. I tell clients that in essence, it's like a Swiss Army knife. If you look at a Swiss Army knife, you've got a blade, or you can have scissors, you can have a can opener, a corkscrew, several different tools built into one.
Right.
I mean, just imagine if you had to carry all those different things in your pocket. I mean, that'd look ridiculous. This plan is meant to be one solution. There's a death benefit, Betsy, if you die, for you and your family. There's living benefits if you don't die. It meaning if you ever had a chronic illness, okay, or a critical illness. And I'll go through in a minute and explain to you what the differences are. Or a terminal illness. If you were to go get all those policies individually, A, it would be cost prohibitive. B, something's probably going to be overlooked and fall between the cracks. Okay? So, but by being able to package all this together, it's pre-packaged discipline, along with the fact that you're going to get better pricing because you've got multiple policies rolled into one.
Gotcha.
Let me give you an example. Here's 4 individuals, okay, of actual clients of conditions that happen in situations in their life. And none of them died. Let me preface that. None of these people died at the point of these stories, and yet the policy had a significant benefit to their family. Number 1, Ben was 45 years old. He had a $200,000 mortgage. He was diagnosed with colon cancer. Now, he did not die, but colon cancer qualified as one of the critical illness benefits. He chose to exercise that critical illness rider and received $100,000 of cash value. Excuse me, not cash value, $100,000 of the death benefit while he was living. So he might have had very little, if any, cash value in the policy, but yet he was able to receive a substantial portion of the death benefit, okay, while he was still living. Now, so he's received $100,000 of the death benefit. He chose to use that money for medical expenses and to replace income from not working. Because when we get sick, life goes on. We still got to pay the bills. We still got to be able to keep the lights on. The other $100,000, Betsy, he would just continue paying premiums for that remaining $100,000 to be able to keep that in force, okay?
Okay.
Okay. I'm sure you can see where every time I tell that story to someone, I think, I know someone that could really benefit from that.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, as I said earlier, the plan is not an investment. It's an insurance policy. But it does act as a forced savings account, and it does build cash value. Tammy built significant cash value in her policy over several years, and she used that money to help take care of tuition for one of her sons for college.
Great.
Okay? Because there's certain tax advantages if we structure your policy properly to building cash value in it. Okay, Sam was 58 years old. This is an amazing story. Sam was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Now, in the state of Georgia, a terminal illness is defined if you have 24 months or less to live, verified through a medical professional.
Okay.
Other states is 12 months, but here in Georgia it's 24. Okay, Sam was 58 years old, diagnosed with a terminal illness. There was an experimental surgery that was kind of his last-ditch effort to save his life. His health insurance would not pay for it. As you and I both know, if something's not approved through our health carrier, they're not going to cover that expense. So unless you have the money to pay for it yourself, or if the policy will provide, or excuse me, if the hospital will provide that service for free, then you don't have the ability to have that procedure done. So with the terminal illness benefit, Sam was able to receive 100% of his death benefit up to a maximum of $500,000, whichever is less. Okay, and he was able to use that money to pay for an experimental surgery that, lo and behold, saved his life.
Wow.
Pretty awesome, isn't it?
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yep, especially if your name's Sam. Then there's Mary. Mary was 77 years of age. She became chronically ill. She was no longer able to stay into her home. She moved into an assisted living facility. With the chronic illness benefit, she was able to receive a monthly income of $2,500 per month for 50 months.
Wow. That
monthly income, Betsy, is based off the death benefit of your policy. It's approximately 2% of your death benefit. So in your case, y'all's monthly, or your death benefit, excuse me, is around $400,000, $417 to be exact. So then 2% of that would be approximately $8,000 per month. Now, the up to a maximum of $9,000 per month is tax-free.
Wow.
Now, being that the average person is only getting approximately $1,500 a month in Social Security, give or take a little bit, that's a significant amount of extra money.
Oh, yeah.
If you're on a fixed income, okay? That money can be used for whatever you choose to use it for. You just have to meet the criteria to be chronically ill, which I'll review with you in a minute. Okay, let's look at those. The three primary features in addition to the death benefit in your policy, Betsy, is number one, the terminal illness benefit, which is, we had discussed, 24 months or less to live. You can get up to $500,000 or your death benefit while you're living, to use that money as you choose fit, okay? Next is the chronic illness benefit. We all know someone, whether it was a mom or a dad, grandmother, grandfather, somebody in our family that became chronically ill, which means you're unable to do 2 of the 6 activities of daily living, which are bathing, continence, dressing, eating, toileting, and transferring. I bet right now you can think of someone you know that used to be able to do all those, and maybe now they can't do some of those.
Yes, I do.
Okay. And it's not a fun thing to think about, but it's just a reality of life. Or if they become severely cognitively impaired for 90 consecutive days. If any of those events were to occur, in essence, you're looking at converting your death benefit to an income stream. Now, a lot of families and folks, they do have long-term care insurance. Unfortunately, most people don't. Do you and your husband have long-term care insurance?
No, we don't.
Okay. Even if you did, this could be a tremendous supplement to it, because long-term care insurance in and of itself is not going to pay for everything. But being that you don't have it, most people, Betsy, they don't really think about getting it until they get too old. Sure. And then it's cost prohibitive at that point. Because when you're 30s and 40s, you're not really considering it because you're raising a family and you've got all these other expenses. So it's something that falls by the wayside. That's a great example of what I was talking about, prepackaged discipline. All these policies bundled into one, to in essence kind of save us from ourselves, if you will.
Sure.
So with the chronic illness, they convert your death benefit to an income stream that can be paid on either a monthly, quarterly, semi-annual, or annual basis based off what you would choose, okay?
Okay.
Now, finally, there's what's called the critical illness benefit. Critical illness is heart attack, stroke, ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, diagnosis of certain cancers, kidney failure, organ transplant, or blindness, okay? After a 30-day, go ahead and stop that, just stop.